Good evening.
Yeah.
I am Martin, and tonight I am going to be talking with the one and only Richard Holliday about his year publishing novellas and what he's done to promote them. I think it's going to be a really interesting chat. You hear a lot about authors who are wildly successful. You don't often get to hear from authors who are in the trenches making it happen. I think we're going to have a really interesting chat. We're going to discuss how you can publish novellas and become Richard Holliday. Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Wonderful.
Good.
So, my first question...
Is that the small talk out of the way then?
Fine.
We can do small talk if you want.
Did you pick it yourself?
Sorry?
What a lovely shirt you have. Did you pick it yourself?
Yeah, well, someone has to.
It's from Asda's Colin Baker range, isn't it?
Give me some standard. It's Matalan.
Catalogues.
Yeah. Oh, dearie me. We've killed that one already.
Who are you?
Hi, my name is Richard Holliday. I am the author of Nightmare Tennant, which is a novella, apparently. I published this in March, and I have seen what I would describe, possibly in a charitable sense, as modest success. I also published this short story, which is the prequel to Nightmare Tennant, which you can download if you subscribe to my newsletter, which if you haven't done already, well, not being funny, it's nearly Christmas, so to get on my good list and get a freebie, get subscribing, do it now. There's no excuse.
Oh, if only you had some way to hold up that in written form. You are nothing if not predictable.
Oh, dear. The classics.
So, now we know who you are. What do you want?
What do I want? What, right now? Wow, that's deep. I don't know what I want. I just want to... What, sorry?
One would assume publishing success.
Oh, yes, that would be really good. I would love to see a book of mine on a bookshelf somewhere. And I'd like to see someone pick it up and buy it without me having given them the money first.
That is almost up there with young Chris Kenny's new hobby of walking into bookshops and taking photos of his books that he's brought with him.
So do you want to know the spoilers? I was there.
I thought you might have been.
I'm just following around with his book. I'm his #1 fanboy, because someone has to be.
You were very excited about his stories when no one else even knew.
I was, I've been there since day one.
So, when it comes to writing, are you a plotter or a pantser?
I'm glad you asked that very interesting question, to which I will give an equally interesting answer. I suppose when I started out, I started as one of these pantsers, because I remember I've always been doing writing stories, I've always loved doing that. I suppose my first real novel attempt was NaNoWriMo 2010. Can you believe that was 11 years ago? Where has the time gone? Anyway, that was a total... Sorry?
We've lived too long.
I have literally lived too long. I mean, the world is poorer for my existence. And I kind of see my continued living as a way to spite my many enemies. Anyway, we were talking about writing, weren't we? So I did my first novel in 2010 as part of NaNoWriMo. And boy, oh boy, I just made it up as I went along. And that book will never, ever see the light of day again. But it was a very good learning exercise. I suppose, I didn't do any chapters. I just literally wrote. And, oh, dearie me. There's a good story in there, just surrounded by terrible prose and planning. And I suppose as I've gotten older and gotten on in my sort of writing career, if we can call it as such, I just kind of learned to plan more. So for Nightmare Tennant, I was very much what's the opposite of penser? Planner. I was a planner. Yeah, I was a planner. Potter. Oh, who cares?
Are we supposed to say trouserer in England?
Yeah, what are they called? Pants.
I know Adam Stevenson refers to people who as kilters.
Steady on.
So you've become more of a plotter as you've gone on.
Yeah. So I suppose the whole kind of reason for getting into plotting was just getting the story down and getting it in a kind of like a vehicle, so to speak, that I can just write quicker. Because if it's planned, like when I wrote Nightmare Tennant, which is my book, look, it's my book. Why are you not? Okay, okay. Anyway, when I wrote there, I managed to write the first draft of that in 6 months. Actually, it went from 6. Actually, no, I did the first draft in about 3. Then I got it ready for publication in another 3, which for me is like yowzers, real quick. And I like that whole almost like a rapid release kind of thing. So that was really good. And that was entirely down to having planned it. So when I was writing away, you know, tap, 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 tap. Oh, I know exactly what's going to happen now. I can just write that instead of this whole stopping and think, shit, where do I go now? It's just it's like painting by numbers in a way, which isn't bad. I still left enough room for the story to kind of take its own turn, but it just made it a lot easier. So it's definitely time well spent.
And that's not the first time your work's been referred to as a rapid release.
Isn't it?
Not by the ladies of Sutton.
Okay. Thanks for interviewing me, Martin. Bye.
I do think you made a really valid point about writing a first novel just to have written a first novel that you never acknowledge again. Because when you haven't written anything that long, it seems insurmountable. And
I have to say, yeah, I definitely agree. The whole NaNoWriMo thing, I don't do NaNoWriMo anymore because it is like stress. Oh, no thanks. Anyway, it's a really good kind of exercise to say, okay, I can actually write a 50,000 word long piece of fiction. And I remember finishing that and I was just so kind of proud of myself. I kind of had these kind of, aspirations to writing. For most of 2010, I thought, you know what, I'm going to kind of write this novel and make a good go of it. And to actually have written 50,000 words in 30 days, I thought that's a damn accomplishment.
It's much harder to sit there and go, oh, writing a book's impossible, apart from that time I did it.
Well, then you get people like Chris Kenny who come along and say, oh yeah, writing fiction's a piece of piss.
Yeah, you don't have to lose any weight for it.
Yeah, you don't have to use any brains, just literally do it with your eyes shut, if only. But actually, saying that, my planning process has made it so it's almost that easy. So the writing Nightmare Tennant was almost that easy once I had the bones of the plot there.
Richard used the celebrated story sheets method, which you can find out more about on my channel.
It is an excellent method. It is the real formula to success. Also,
Barrett Laurie wants to know what the first thing you bought yourself with your royalty money was.
First time I booked my royalties was this proof copy of my first ever book. This is my NaNoWriMo. Was this 20? Was this 20? No, this was a couple of years after that. But this is one of my NaNoWriMo books that I had done, and believe you me, this will be going in the coffin with me because no one's reading this. But yeah, in terms of like royalties, what did I do? Possibly my bought a McDonald's. I don't know. It was that long ago because I did actually briefly sell this, very briefly, and I got a few pounds. So yeah, I suppose I probably bought more copies of the book myself than I did anyone else.
So how did the idea for a low-income paranormal horror come about? Other than Croydon, what were your inspirations?
With you and Croydon, you can talk Red Hill boy, nothing to write home about. I suppose, are you meaning Nightmare Tennant? Which I'm going to stop waving around now. I'm putting it out of arm's reach. We are not going to be seeing it again. One more time. Okay. I just kind of thought the whole haunted house story is like a very classic because, it might surprise people to hear that I'm actually not particularly experienced in horror writing. It's kind of like all new to me. I'm kind of finding my feet in it a little bit. But yeah, I just kind of thought a haunted house, kind of like a classic trope. And I always thought sort of tower blocks, especially with their history in the UK as being, these great experiments gone wrong and quite sort of dingy places. I thought, this could be quite cool if we had some kind of haunted tower block, and the reason why it's haunted. So yeah, I kind of just developed it from there. I suppose some of the influences on it were High Rise by J.G. Ballard, a book I truly, truly hated because nothing happened in it. I was like, this is really good setup, really good kind of world. Make something happen. And actually, funnily enough, one of the things that did inspire me to do this was the Doctor Who story Paradise Towers, which is kind of based on High Rise. So that kind of like societal decay, just kind of interesting mix to throw characters and plot into.
And am I right in saying that High Rise features a character called Lejeune?
Does it?
Well, probably Lejeune, because the Americans can never get it right.
Yeah, I mean, I only read it once, and that's quite enough.
I know one of the Ballard books does. I like how you took like your sort of genre tropes and put them into your surroundings and reinvented the wheel almost.
Yeah. I just kind of thought, how can I kind of innovate this and make it my thing? So kind of what I'm finding with my sort of horror and thrillers is I like to make mundane things we all take for granted in sort of everyday sort of settings and make them a kind of like a bit spooky, macabre. Because I think one of the things when I was first doing horror writing, I learned was don't just rely on body horror and gore. Kind of put the horror deeper than that kind of skin level thing. So I kind of want to make people just kind of glimpse at like things in their everyday and just think twice. Then just a little moment of thought. And I kind of feel that's a lot more effective as horror. Does that make sense?
Yes. So you started writing Nightmare Tennant as a 10,000-word short story to release to your newsletter for Halloween 2020.
That is correct, and we know that Richard and brevity are like oil and water; they do not mix. Because I think the problem with that was I was experimenting with story beats as a sort of planning thing. So I downloaded a story sheet outline for a horror story. Turns out I downloaded a story sheet for a horror story for a novel. So I ended up generating far too much story for 10,000 words. So kind of got there and thought, I'm actually quite enjoying this. I thought, you know what, sod it, let's kind of make this a novella. And I kind of pushed the boundary of what a novella is because it's about 40,000 words, which is kind of up there for novella. It's almost into a short novel, though these kind of categories are quite arbitrary. So yeah, it kind of grew from there, and I was really glad it did because I think the story, well, because I generated enough story to fill out this short novel / novella, it just really worked. I mean, it could have gone longer, certainly, but I'm kind of happy with it as long as it was.
And so was it at the outlining stage that you realised it was somewhat unwieldy and had gone away from you?
Well, it wasn't so much the outline. Like I'd finished the outline, and I was thinking, yeah, this is really helped. I've got a really good outline. I was really pleased with how the kind of beats helped me decide what I was doing. Then I started writing it. I got to about 8,000. I'm thinking, I'm still in the first act to this, and I've got about another 4 to go. I'm thinking, shit. So I just kind of thought, you know what? Go big or go home. So I went for that, and I'm really pleased with it because even holding it in my hand, it's just nice. It's very substantial because I have written very short stories and published them before, and they're nice to have. But it's a good meaty book. I feel it's about as long as The Rats by James Herbert, which is a big favourite of mine. It's a nice kind of comparison.
Do you feel that you've limited yourself to certain genres, or are you okay hopping? Asks Bethany Votar.
Does she now?
Yes.
That's a very interesting question. I kind of feel I'm kind of most at home in the kind of like science fiction, in the horror and the thrillers. I want to kind of just make that kind of my like niche, however you pronounce it. It's definitely niche. I don't know if niche.
There's no T in it.
What?
No.
It's niche, not niche.
No. Niche.
Okay. Yes, dear. Calm down. Yeah. So I don't know. There's certain genres I don't think I'd want to write in. Romance, well, definitely not. I could write a romance and end up like a pamphlet. That's a good word, that pamphlet. I'm kind of not sure about like kids' books because Nightmare Tennant and all of my books have some very kind of like grown-up themery in them, so I'm not quite sure whether that would be doable. It'd be a challenge, shall we say. So yeah, I'm kind of happy with the kind of 3 genres I'm kind of happy kind of dabbling in at the moment. So science fiction, that I'm currently writing, or I've currently edited a post-apocalyptic novel, which Martin, I believe you've read one of the drafts of.
Yes.
And I'll be querying that next year, hopefully, because I'm really pleased with that. So I'm kind of going to be working in those kind of strands, so to speak. But you know what, I'm not going to rule anything out.
So you're not a full-time novelist because the world is unjust.
The world is very unjust. I mean, you know, I don't even win the lottery. I don't even play the lottery because I'm so unlucky.
Was the idea with a 40,000 word story that this could be something that you could publish that, you know, was more than a short story, but more feasible to produce than an entire novel, and perhaps a framework that you could repeat and issue several within a year? Was that kind of your thinking?
Yeah, I definitely think the sort of fairly rapid turnaround from 6 months from blank page to book in my hand was something I thought I could do a couple of these a year, see how that works out. I think also, usually with my novel that I'm working on, it has been a multi-year kind of process, off and on, and I just kind of want to accelerate that whole process so I can get more stories out. Because the things I'm brimming with ideas, it's just kind of like I've got to deal with one thing at a time. And yeah, I just kind of want to be I don't want to say churning to them, I kind of want to be more productive, shall we say. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Good.
So you're hoping for an October release. When did you start the first draft?
Hang on. What was I aiming for in October? Oh, you mean that's sort of I started in like early September thinking, I could bash this out in a month. You know, it's only going to be 10,500 words, you know, easy peasy. But yeah, it just kind of snowballed from that. I kind of think I picked the publishing date fairly arbitrarily because I think over that Christmas 2019, I kind of decided I want to get Nightmare Tennant out by the end of Q1 2020, and I did.
And when did you wrap?
We needed something to be happy about in the first quarter of 2020, didn't we?
So you're taking responsibility for that whole situation, is what you're saying?
It is single-handedly my fault for everything that has happened since March 2020 in the whole world.
So when did you finish that first draft?
I kind of finished it. I actually got a reminder on Facebook recently. I think it was about this time last year. I kind of got to the end of the first draft. It was about 37,000 words. And then I thought, crackers, I better edit this, hadn't I? Which was, you know, I took a couple of weeks off because I think it's important to kind of let a draft rest for a couple of weeks. The trouble is, it's very easy to let that couple of weeks turn into 6 months, which is what's happened before. The worst thing I think I did was when I was halfway through an edit of The Thor, which you read, I kind of got halfway through, then put it down for 6 months, and then I totally lost my place. So it's kind of getting that fine balance of, like, you know, taking a bit of distance to kind of, you know, build up that head of steam again, and then just, you know, totally going cold on it. So I think a couple of weeks to maybe 3-4 weeks max is the break you should, you know, put it in the drawer for.
So when you finished your draft and you'd put it in your drawer and you'd got it back out again, what was your post process like? Did you do multiple rounds of edits? Did you send it to beta readers or editors?
Yeah. I think I did one edit myself, which was the first kind of like horrific edit, just to kind of tidy it up from that kind of messy draft. And then I sent it out to some beta readers, and I created a feedback form. This is kind of where I think my process kind of shines, is that I kind of take a scientific approach to it. So the plan is a spreadsheet, just to keep it organised. The feedback goes on a spreadsheet just to keep it organised, because the worst thing for me is having all this feedback coming in and it goes in drips and drabs, gets lost, and you never action it. So did that. Once I had the feedback from the beta reader, which was a bit of time actually, and to be honest, because it kind of gave me like 3 or 4 weeks to kind of just kind of think about what else I wanted to do. Once I had the feedback, I then knew what I had to focus on for that for the eventual release. Looking back on it, I do think it was a little rushed in a way, in terms of like the very first release had too many typos that I was proud to admit, so I had to kind of revise it a couple of times. But that is a learning experience. So in the future, if I do books, which I hope you're hoping to, there's going to be a definite kind of proofreading phase, because I kind of winged that bit a little bit. So yeah, that's something I learned from this year.
And was it a case that you got to the end of Q1 and thought off your pop, or did you know it was ready?
I think it was definitely a time of like, oh shoot, it's my deadline. You've got to go out. And the thing is, I committed to that deadline in a live stream, so I couldn't kind of back out on it. I thought, you know what, it has to be out, sort of kind of come what may. Because the trouble with deadlines, especially if you're kind of like a self-published author and you're basically working for yourself, is you can just keep moving those deadlines. So I wanted to commit to it and be like, right, it is out on this date, so I'm going to work my little socks off to get it there. So I spent like the last month, the whole of March, kind of preparing it, and it just told me that I need to kind of factor in more time for this. So I was trying to do I was trying to edit it again, and it was quite a long edit. It was, not an insignificant thing to edit 40,000 words in about 2 weeks. Oh, there was a hot mess then. And then obviously do the cover. I had to create the paperback version, which a lot of people, especially these Mac lemons who've got vellum, I'll just click 2 buttons and boom, done. No, I did it all by hand, so it was a bit more of an involved process. It took a couple of nights to do, but yeah, I think it's definitely like a learning experience into the time scales, but perhaps not quite as realistic as idealistic me had thought.
So when did you start thinking Foundations? Were you always going to go straight into another in the series, or were you thinking of maybe moving on and got drawn back in, much like the characters in the books themselves?
That's a nice touch. I didn't have the plan for Foundations until well after I published Nightmare Tennant. I kind of was looking into reader magnets, because I was seeing, I think Kent Shawn had just released his kind of prequel. And I think one of the tips I learned about reader magnets was, don't just give them 3 chapters of the book, because reader magnets, if you want to kind of draw them in successfully, you should actually have a complete story. And so I thought, well, wouldn't it be fun to do like a little prequel, a long time before the events of Nightmare Tennant, just like an origin story, shall we say. So I kind of thought about it. I thought there's enough kind of like, a vagueness in the original book that I can kind of tie it together. So I did that. I'm really pleased with how that came out. I think that was actually not just more of the same, it kind of was its own personality and foundation. So I had a lot of fun writing that. I think with a reader magnet, a lot of people think, oh, I'm going to give it away for free. Don't have to put much effort into it. If anything, you have to put more effort into it, because this is what a lot of people are going to download because they like a freebie. So I made sure it was edited, I had it proofread. I didn't go quite as nuts on the proofreading as I did for Nightmare Tennant. It was only a couple of people read it. And yeah, I just kind of, I treat it like a legitimate novel project. So I commissioned a cover for it. I took it as seriously as the original Nightmare Tennant, because I think if I don't take it seriously, why the audience will take it seriously is my reader magnet. And this is supposed to drag people in. So if it's substandard, it's got to be, it's not going to act as an advert, frankly.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of truth to that. Like in your mind, you're going, let's just get this one out so it can do its job, where it's the one thing that can't fail. If you get it right, it will do more for you than any of your other projects combined.
Exactly. Because it's the thing that people can get for free. It can be their kind of like they're I don't want to say the term gateway drug, because I've been reading the chat a little bit. But your reader magnet is the gateway drug into your kind of like writing universe. So you kind of want to make it as good as, if not better than your actual work. You almost want it to be like that. I'm not going to mention that particular white powder. You want it to be like sugar. You want people to want to just gobble it up.
You want it to be like the pilot episode to a TV show almost.
This is it, exactly. It's like a pilot. And I think Foundations works as a good pilot. And actually, a lot of people have asked me, "Oh, which order shall I read Nightmare, Tennant and Foundations?" I'll say, you can actually read them in whichever order you want. Because they actually, and this was actually a total happy accident. I like to say I planned this out, but I didn't. They are totally independent pieces of work. And I think that's really good.
I'd say
that the series, but it doesn't have to be.
I'd say that reader magnets are, in a way, like the tie-in novels you get for TV shows, where you need something that if someone loves the TV show and has seen every episode, they're going to get something more from it than, they're not just going to come away going, oh, that was just a bit extra to get a bit more money out of me. But you also can't have it in, where if someone hasn't read the novel, they go, I don't understand what's going on. And there's a very fine line in making something that's accessible but not exclusive.
I think that's a very good point. That's a very good point.
And I think what you've done with making it about the character it's about works in a really nice way. And it's almost like one of those films that if you've seen it before, you're watching a different film to when you see it the first time. So well done, you.
I honestly can't tell if you're being sarcastic or not. I'm gonna be charitable and assume not. So thank you.
So it wasn't an idea that actually came about during the writing of Nightmare Tennant.
I mean, I obviously knew that the architect was going to be kind of like the focal point, and there was a lot of mystery and intrigue. But I certainly didn't plan it while I was writing Nightmare Tennant, because I was busy writing Nightmare Tennant, funnily enough. But it did kind of all slot in. I did kind of feel a little bit kind of perhaps limited by Nightmare Tennant in terms of the lore, so I couldn't totally make things totally change in Foundations because otherwise it wouldn't line up. But getting them to kind of dovetail together wasn't a problem, I found. I thought there was enough kind of mystery and intrigue in the events before Nightmare Tennant to kind of explore in and out its own story. And I think Foundations was just about the right length for that story.
Do you ever find National Theatre fans wandering into your books confused by
that? Sadly, no. I need to appeal to them. Really. I think they'd be, well up for it.
So, did you do much? Like you say, you wrote Foundations specifically as a reader magnet. Did you do much research into that before diving into it, or did you just?
Not a great deal, besides the point I made earlier that a reader magnet needs to not just be the first 3 chapters of your book, but it needs to be its own story, which is what kind of like sort of crystallized in my head, like, what could I make a reader magnet of then? And I thought, at the moment, Nightmare Tennant's out, do the prequel, draw people in with that. So that's kind of really worked. I think also this reader magnet, this will not be my reader magnet forever. Possibly next year there'll be a new one. Who's to say? To quote Bethany Votor, who's to say? So yeah, I kind of think you need to keep your reader magnet fresh as you develop as well. Otherwise, it just becomes a little bit kind of stale. So I kind of think this is the whole kind of like notion of reader magnets are low effort, afterthoughts, but they're not. They need to be as important as your sort of main catalogue. What do you think?
I think if you do want just a chapter given away, then sign up over at bradleylejeune.com.
Oh, bless you.
So, is the Nightmare Tennant verse something you will look to revisit?
I kind of think I've explored as much of it as I feel I have to explore. I kind of feel anything after that would kind of be a little bit derivative. So the story has kind of like expended itself. But yeah, I definitely I'd love to do another Tower Block story. I've kind of got an idea for one that is not supernatural at all. It's totally driven by shitty characters doing shitty things, which is going to be interesting to write at some point. I kind of want to do other kind of, mundane to macabre kind of stories. So I've got another, let's call them sister ideas, shall we say, to work on at some point. But the actual prequel to Nightmare Tennant, don't know what we'd even call it. Nightmare Demolition? No.
Adequate Tennant.
Adequate Tennant.
Mild-mannered Tennant.
That's what we want, not Nightmare Tennant, but Adequate Tenants. So, yeah.
And is this kind of 40k range something you want to revisit?
I think it's good as a novella. I would like to obviously self-publish some proper novels in the future, but I think a 40k novella is not a bad little chunk, because especially in today's content-rich world, it's easily digestible. It's a few days kind of work. Boom, done. There you go. I think the trouble with trying to sort of pitch a 200,000 word kind of epic fantasy is, people have got to read it, haven't they? And we live in a kind of like a world where there's content everywhere. It's like a bombardment of content that you have to keep up with. So the novella, I actually kind of feel, I know some people think the novella has no kind of future. I actually disagree with that quite profoundly, because I think that it's just the right kind of like manageable chunk for people to consume. And I kind of think it's terrible that, books have become content to be consumed, because I don't like the term content creator. I just think it's, I'm not one of these TikTok people modelling in the Speedos or anything like that. I'm not a content creator. I'm an author, and I'm proud to be an author.
At this point, I'd just like to give a shout out to a friend of the show, Barrett Laurie.
Oh dear, I'm in trouble, aren't I?
So at what point did you go, right, time to launch a newsletter?
The newsletter, there's a funny story about the newsletter, which I will tell right now. The newsletter, I kind of, for a long time, I kind of poo-pooed the idea of a newsletter. I'm thinking, email? Who uses email anymore? Hello, it's all about, what's the current social media trend? TikTok? Snapchat? What the fuck is TikTok? What is going on in this world?
What is Tinder?
Tinder. Listen, I'm not getting into your private life, Martin. So, we'll leave that there. Anyway, so part of me was like, emails. Who needs emails? Turns out,
you were like, HTMI do.
Sorry?
HTMI do.
HTMI.
It's like
HTML. Okay,
yeah.
Never mind. Anyway, I think it was January, I was talking in the Discord, part of this wonderful Discord community run by the one and only Bethany Votor, who does a very good job. Anyway, I decided to set up my newsletter in January, because I thought, you know what, new year, new me, all that bollocks. And so I started it, and I just thought, you know what, instead of thinking I'll do it next month, let's just start it. And I just, took it from there, because I think the newsletter is actually a very powerful tool, because you have access directly to customers, and potential customers at least, email inboxes. You can get past all this kind of crap of Twitter or Facebook. I kind of see social media as a hotel room that you rent. You rent a space there, and you can be kicked out of Twitter. They can redecorate whether you want to or not, without any kind of input. But with a newsletter, you have total control on that, and you can just send that to people. So yeah,
with newsletters,
kind of why I went. Sorry,
with newsletters, do you find it's a good idea to start one by going, "Hi, customers.
Hello, valued customer. Here's something to sell." I actually kind of think that's the worst way to start a newsletter, because I think if you come on too hard with the hard sell, people are just going to be like, "I don't want to read this." So you kind of have to think, what can I give that's exclusive content? And this is where I think the newsletter is quite powerful, because you can kind of say, give me your email address and I'll give you exclusive content you can't get anywhere else. This is kind of like the sort of transaction you're kind of carrying out there. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Good. I'm glad it does.
Did you do much research into what makes it successful or for newsletter?
Initially, I kind of winged it for a
Why
lot
is
of
it
time.
day trips?
Sorry?
And why is it day trips?
Day trips? I suppose.
You did a newsletter where you went to the seaside, remember?
I did go to the seaside and also went to Oxford, which was a bit less spectacular. But anyway, I kind of thought, what would I want in a newsletter? I kind of thought, well, a newsletter is kind of like a personal note to my readers. And it's kind of nice to be able to have a kind of connection with readers that maybe I don't want to do it as a blog post and have it public for all and sundry forevermore, but kind of have it a little bit exclusive, a little bit more intimate, a little bit more personal. So I always try to include like a personal update, because I don't want to just make it about selling my newsletter. I obviously have over time kind of honed it down a little bit, and there is quite, fair enough, there's quite a lot of stuff about this is what I've done, look at me. But I just kind of trying to make it that kind of personal connection that people might find interesting. Because this is the thing, if a newsletter is interesting, people are going to want to stay subscribed. If it's boring as fuck, you can bet your bottom dollar I'm going to delete that, I'm going to unsubscribe, and I'm going to just not regard it well. So yeah, I just try to keep it interesting. And the kind of unfortunate thing is I'm not a very interesting person, so I just kind of think, oh, shit, what do I write about this month? And so the day trips were good fun. I just kind of try to crystallise on a theme for that month's newsletter. Just write like a little letter on what I'm thinking. So that's kind of my kind of philosophy.
And did you do much
research?
research?
By the way, in response to Barrett's comment, I am not going to be putting any Speedos videos in my newsletter because, geez Louise, I don't want to lose all my subscribers.
Did you do much research before launching, or did you just shout Geronimo?
I just did a bit of a Geronimo thing. I kind of had an idea what I wanted the newsletter to be. I did like a few cursory Googles as to what to include in an author newsletter to actually make it good. So yeah, I did that. But every month I've just kind of tried to hone my format down to a good format. I mean, you've read the newsletter, Martin. You can be honest. What do you think of it? Also, I want to know what 2 books Barrett has bought based on my newsletter, because that's a really nice thing for him to say. I mean, I could just go onto my stats and track what he's been clicking on, because I can do that.
I think you make a really good point about not doing the hard sell, and there's almost a paradox of the less you push, the more likely you are to sell something, because it's in the reader's mind, they get to know you and start to think of you as a friend, especially if you get a very interactive newsletter, and then want to support you, and that can grow organically. Whereas if you're just saying buy it, it shuts that down.
It's just impersonal. I always treat every subscriber as a friend. So I don't act like I'm writing to a big audience. I act like I'm writing to one person. It just happens to be in an audience of people. So I kind of try to make it, hello, this is me, this is what I've been doing this month. Oh, by the way, I have got a book out if you want to have a look at these reviews. Also, there's a freebie you might not have downloaded yet, so don't miss your chance. And then just kind of, I also think a really key point of my newsletter that kind of came by accident was the author highlight that I do at the end of every newsletter. So I always try to kind of pay it forward in not just making it about me. I kind of try to throw in a link to a book from a friend, a self-published friend, or who's to say. So I always try to kind of put those in just to kind of spread that community a little bit. And I just think it's a nice thing to do. I'm not sure how many sales it results in. Barrett's asking me who was at August. I'm not going to be able to find out without checking. But yeah, that's kind of why I think that's actually an important thing. It also shows to your reader you're not just doing the hard sell. You're actually trying to say, oh, I've read this book, you might like it. Give it a go.
And how much changed once you started offering Foundations as a reader magnet with the newsletter?
So I did get quite a lot of downloads. I also, at the moment, when I started offering Foundation, I started advertising my newsletter, which was quite an interesting experience.
Mm-hmm. We'll get to that.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what my August newsletter was, because I don't remember what one I did.
I just thought there was a book called Who Was August, which I might nick as a title later down the
I
line.
think you should definitely steal that.
Yeah.
Yeah. My phone is just on the floor. Anyway, yeah. Oh,
So-
August was on the Project of Trolls by the wonderful Benjamin T. Milnes, who needs to be part of the Brit Pack, by the way, Barrett. So, you know, have you taken notes since you put your notebook out?
Have you managed to get much interaction from your readers?
So since I've been doing the adverts, I took on a tip that I saw. I think it was in Newsletter Ninja, to try to leave the kind of letter part.
To hold up?
Sorry?
Have you got a copy of that to hold up?
Oh, yeah. Oh, geez. This is actually a really helpful book, so I would definitely recommend it. Anyway, what was I saying? I try to now always make the sort of newsletter part end with a question that kind of incentivizes people to respond. Like, oh, tell me what you've been reading this summer. I mean, I haven't had any responses. But it's kind of like giving like an open question. So people can always reply to my newsletter and contact me. And that's part of the kind of like community building, really. It's just trying to kind of engender people and elicit responses, because I do want to hear from people. It is nice. I mean, sure, there's going to come a point, if I was actually successful, that I might have thousands of people on this. I would not be able to manage those responses. But it's kind of nice. And I try to respond to other people's newsletters. I try to like email and say, "Oh, I like this newsletter," just because it's good for engagement, isn't it? Don't you think?
And how have you made sure you come across as authentic in your newsletters?
I just kind of think
the robotic dum-dum you usually are in real life.
that is so rude to characterize me as a robotic dum-dum. Pick one. I'm either robotic or dum-dum. Actually, no, don't pick one. I don't want to know, you know. I am wonderful, you know, so, you know, that is. So I just kind of think it's just talk about things that are happening or things that are on your mind. Again, it comes back to not just being a hard sell. So, yeah. And also, you just kind of like try to make it that personal news, not just like, right, I've done this, 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 and this. Let's get on with the selling. So yeah, I just kind of try to write as a note to a friend, basically.
So, did you start the paid advertising, when you launched the newsletter, or later on?
I didn't do the advertising when I started in January. That came in about sort of, I think it was June, July, August time. When I finally had the reader magnet, I thought, so I was inspired to do that because Gary Thomas, he has like a download as part of his newsletter. If you sign up to it, you get this download of this PDF. I wish I could be more specific, but I can't remember what the PDF actually is. And he
Wasn't it a guide for getting money from the Arts Council?
There you go. Probably. Who knows? I mean, you would know if you subscribe to his newsletter. I mean, I did, but I just don't know what the download is. Anyway, I'm rambling to fill time. So he did a Facebook advert. He told me about, and he said, I managed to get about a few hundred subscribers off a Facebook advert. I'm thinking, oh, I'd like to advertise my newsletter, but I kind of you got to have like a carrot to dangle in front of people. So we'll probably get onto that, won't we, about my success or mixed success in advertising. But that's kind of once I had the reader magnet, I thought I've got now a product to say, click this, then you can have this. Instead of just thinking, click this and you'll be spammed once a month. I wanted to have like a tangible kind of thing for people to download and kind of think, oh, we're going to click on that. So yeah. Oh, Gary's here, and I've just talked about his newsletter.
You said his name. Of course he is.
Say his name 3 times and he appears and shoves the funding application in your face.
So, what advertising platforms have you used?
I've only really been kind of experimenting a little with Facebook. I know, boo, hiss, Facebook, boo. And I've had kind of like moderate success. I've had some success. And the first advert I did, I ran it for a week. I didn't spend a lot of money on it. All of the adverts I've done so far, I think of the term is they're Gen 1 ads. They're just kind of like testing things out. I think I got 40 subscribes from it, which I was really pleased about. I got quite a lot of downloads on the reader magnet as well, which was nice. So I did that for a week just to see what would happen. I did rerun that advert recently just to see what would happen, and it wasn't as successful. Whether that's to do with the time of year, I'm not sure. Whether I need to kind of work on the copy, whether I need to work on the image that I used. But it's kind of interesting to know that, I think adverts are very much kind of like, I'm still trying to work out the kind of science behind adverts. Does that make sense? Because
Yeah,
marketing is a dark art. It's like black magic. Who knows?
it's a lot of moving parts as well, and it can be quite difficult to see, what made the ad effective. Was it the targeting? Was it the picture? Was it the copy?
So this is why you have to keep testing. So I did a second advert over Halloween, and then did another advert because Nightmare Tennant had a free period for its 6-month birthday, which was really good. I got nearly 500 downloads, which I was quite pleased about. So I suppose you just got to test these things out. It doesn't really help that the Facebook ad user interface, especially if you go past the ad center in your Facebook page to the ad manager, which is in their kind of backend, it has got possibly one of the worst user interfaces known to man. It is totally Byzantine. I could not tell you what any of those buttons do, and there's no help whatsoever. So good luck. But yeah, it is a bit of a dark art, and you just have to kind of just not be disheartened by any of it, and just be resolved to try again, try something different, see if you get better results. So some of the things I want to try differently is not putting the Foundations cover on the actual ad. I think, Martin, you suggested that I just put like a stock image that's no relation to the book. Well, it actually does have a relation to the book, obviously, but it's not just part of the cover on there, and see what the response is. Hannah Palmer is another very excellent marketer. I need to steal her brain and sweep out its secrets without delay. She did an advert for her new novel. What was it called again? One Road In. That was it. That's a very good novel, and I'm going to use those techniques to kind of see if I can get some paid sales for it.
So,
thank you.
I mean, I don't know what your Facebook feed is like, but I probably get more ebook ads than anything else. And
I mean, Foundations was an ebook that I always kind of positioned it as. The fact that I've got some printed is just for me. You can't actually buy the printed ones.
Which is why you have so many.
Well, you know what.
But when you see all of these over and over, it's interesting because you get an idea of what's working because they hang around for longer. But you also...
the ironic thing is, I don't actually see any adverts on Facebook because I use an ad blocker.
You shouldn't bite the hand that feeds you, Richard.
No. Then you get people like Martin who see my advert served to them and they click on it to cost me money.
Don't just tell you I do and giggle. But you see ads quite often, which is just a mock-up of a book cover, and it does get to the point where you're just like, well, that's just an ad. And there's even been a couple of times where I've scrolled past something, assuming it was an ad, and realised that it was a friend's post that I was actually interested in. And
I think you got to kind of look past the posts that look like ads and make them actually look engaging. So maybe that's what went wrong with my second run of that ad, that it just looked like an ad. So you know what, I still got some subscribers out of it, so I'm not going to sort of complain too much, but I'm going to work on it a bit more.
I think what can work quite well is if you take a stock image that could look like a frame from a film or something,
or a scene from the book.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be, entirely spot on. It's just to grab someone's attention long enough to read your copy. But that's probably worth trying as well because it does stand out a bit more.
I think so, definitely, because you saw the ad image I used for Foundations. I thought it was a pretty good image, but it's obviously an ad.
Yeah.
It's just like the cover on a sort of background that says, get this free ebook or free ebook download, stuff like that. Which I suppose is very blunt. Sorry?
It can still work.
I mean, it did work to some modest degree. I think Barrett makes a good point about how do I determine what my ad budget would be. I'm fucking tight. It's what determined it. I thought, just test it out. I don't want to invest hundreds of pounds into it. So I think it cost me about 20 quid for a week. And it kind of tells you on Facebook what your estimated reach is going to be. So I thought, no, let's see what happens with this before I kind of plunge a whole big stack of money into it. I think definitely with Gen 1 ads, you'd be a bit silly to blow a load of cash on it. So just test them out, get an idea of what might be working, and then see from there. I'm actually talking like I know anything about marketing. I don't know jack shit.
I think the mistake a lot of people make when they do have an ad that starts to get a bit of traction is go, oh, this is clearly working, and then dump, 10 times the budget on it, and then wonder why they don't get 10 times the return.
It's not linear like that, is it?
You sort of need to do it in increments of, 5, 10, 20%.
Yeah, definitely. And also, I think you can't just rely on that copy all the time. You have to kind of think, okay, now you need to be constantly improving. So I'd actually say if you're going to be doing advertising, that ad writing is definitely part of your writing kind of regimen. You need to be thinking about that. Don't just kind of think of it as an afterthought. Definitely be thinking, how could I advertise this book? Or how could I get people to sign up to my newsletter?
So would you ever write a book starting from the advert?
Oh, good heavens, no! I don't know where else. Oh, that'd just be like that'd be going back to my pantsing hell days. Oh, jeez Louise, no. That could be an interesting challenge though. If the advert was like a prompt for a book, is that what you're saying?
I have spent long time searching through stock image sites, putting a cover together, going, this would be so much easier if I did this to start with, and then wrote a story around that.
Yeah, but the thing is with that is you shouldn't write a story around a stock image. There's plenty out there, but you can always find something to suit your needs. Like what we found the cover of Nightmare Tennant, that's basically all stock images, kind of mishmashed together.
I once had a very difficult time trying to find just the right private eye without a beard.
It's when you have that kind of exact image in your head that you want, and then you spend hours looking for it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you're saying you had the ad for Foundation that got you 500 downloads. Was that your biggest success?
That was the ad for the Nightmare Tennant free week. They got 500 downloads. I'd say that was my biggest success. I was really pleased with that. I did kind of notice that the downloads kind of tailed off every day. It was a 5-day kind of promotion. But yeah, I was really pleased.
Just to be clear.
And I will say it was successful because I got about 2 or 3 reviews out of it from people I had no idea who they were. And they actually went and reviewed it on Amazon and on Goodreads. So I would say that is a definite success. I got my work into the hands of people. People took advantage of my offer. And then I got some reviews, so that was a success for me. I think I got some KNP page reads. I'm not sure if I got paid for. I think I did. I'm not sure. I just get these emails from Amazon saying they paid me. I'm like, okay, fair enough.
So is Foundation still perma-free?
Yes. So actually, with Foundations, I wanted it to have a page on Amazon and on Goodreads, and the only way to do that is to actually upload it. So you can buy it as an ebook, or you can get it for free as part of my newsletter. And that's just so I've got that kind of platform for reviews, basically. So I don't think anyone should actually buy it.
So I think we were on a stream recently, and one of the comments was that someone had just bought it.
Yeah, which is very nice of them. I would have rather been signed up to my newsletter because I think actually this is going to sound a bit bad, but I actually kind of think there's probably more value in having them as a subscriber to my newsletter going forward than just buying one book and then saying hi and bye. I don't know what you think of
that. I think sort of in the long term, it is a long game, and you probably do get more out of them hanging around. But
one thing I learned is at the back of my self-published books, I put literally a link to my newsletter. I don't know if you can see that. It's literally a page saying, if you like this, sign up to my newsletter with a QR code, because we all love QR codes in 2021, don't we?
Gary signed up with a second email to get it.
The thing is, it's still, you get it as part of the onboarding thing, but it's always a reminder and everything is that you can get this book for free if you download it. Yeah, I just think the idea of putting like the QR code at the back of my print books is, and I've actually had someone bought Nightmare Tennant. I did know them, to be honest. Someone I used to work with. And yeah, they bought Nightmare Tennant, read it, enjoyed it, and they signed up from the page at the back of the book. And I thought, this is the thing: is you have to make it as accessible as possible. Don't just rely on people going to your newsletter and then click to your website and clicking this and clicking that. Make it as easy as possible, because then the more easier it is, the more likely people are going to just take a chance on it.
I think as well, like whilst it is long term more beneficial to doing a freebie and getting the sign up rather than the one sale, you're in a much stronger position if you do have 3 or 5 or 10 or 20 books to give some away from, rather than having one and giving that away for free.
So that's why I definitely thought the reader magnet was really good, because it kind of complements the other book. And definitely Foundation, both of the books, actually Foundation and Nightmare Tennant, they're going to be part of my backlist. So maybe when Foundations is no longer my reader magnet, it'll just be an ebook that people can buy.
Would you consider doing a third entry in the trilogy and releasing a box set, inquiring Colin Clark's wants to know?
Colin, that's a very good question, to which I'm going to give a very disappointing answer. I don't have any more story for that kind of universe at the moment. I'm going to say never. I'm going to say never say never. Yeah, go on.
I think you should do like a post-apocalyptic entry where the tower has been destroyed, but the Tennant remains. 10%.
I could do it as some kind of pastiche on postmodernist architecture. Oh, who knows? Who's to say? I'm going to say never. But my kind of writing priority at the moment is not going to be a follow-up to Nightmare Tennant, I'm afraid. And not being funny, after this year, I've kind of written enough about tower blocks. So, you know what? I'm not going to rule it out entirely, but I wouldn't kind of hold your breath. It's a good idea, though. I'm not quite sure it would be a very good box set, with one being, that size. I don't know. They're kind of similar, though. I use the same graphic designer for both covers, so they're definitely, the same but different. Gary says he has an Amazon author page. Gary, go and sign up for one. It's free. I've got my Author Central page. It's very useful. I probably need to update it, though.
Gary, you can just publish screenplays if you want on Kindle. I mean, you shouldn't, but you can. People do.
You shouldn't, but you can. It's like poetry. You shouldn't, but you can.
Are you doing a bit of beat poetry there?
Absolutely not. I don't know what beat poetry is.
Have you done any ads that haven't performed particularly well, which have been, you've tried something that didn't work out and has been more of a noble failure?
I would say the second ad, I kind of used different copy and title. I kind of positioned Foundations as like a Halloween read. It wasn't a particularly successful advert. I didn't get as many sign-ups as I hoped. So I probably wouldn't use that copy again. I didn't get as many clicks. I think it just didn't perform as well. So I'm glad I tried it out. Yeah, I probably wouldn't do that again. Or if I did, I'd use a lot different copy and imagery. Just try something totally different. And if that does answer your question. So it was supposed to be a noble failure. I don't think any of them have been what I would consider failures, because even if I get one subscriber, that's good. It's very expensive paying 20 quid for one subscriber. Yeah, it's just kind of interesting to see how things work. And it's just interesting to see how lightning sometimes doesn't strike twice. So an advert that might work at one point doesn't work 3 months down the line if you do it in the exact same circumstances.
So say I was a writer who hadn't done any advertising. Is there any books or blogs or podcasts or videos that you'd say, sit down and watch this or read this or listen to this?
In terms of podcast, I would definitely recommend my podcast with Books by Adrian, featuring Adam Stevenson. That was a spicy meatball. That was good fun. But in terms of your actual question, Martin, not the question I hoped you were going to ask, definitely the Newsletter Ninja is a book I feel is very valuable. What are the other ones I've got? I read The Sizzling Synopsis by Brian Cohen, and I think there's that other one, Why Does My Facebook Ad Suck, by two people whose names escape me. Do you know the one I'm talking about?
Yes.
Excellent.
I've actually just started my Sizzling Synopsis, which I mashed 2 titles together. Sizzling Synopsis I did actually start reading. It is pretty.
The synopsis is really difficult. It's not quite. It's not quite a. Well, there's a difference between a synopsis and a blurb. I think blurbs you get into that very sort of like trailer text, kind of like in a world where sort of like mindset, which is ugh. So yeah, it's difficult. It's difficult to kind of pin down that synopsis. I believe our good friend Barrett Laurie had a very good video on synopsises. Synopsi. What's the plural of synopsises? I don't know. Anyway, he did a very good video about it as part of his Query Chronicles playlist. So if you haven't clicked on that, I would recommend that you do so. Not immediately, because that'll take you off of this stream, but later.
So I was just trying to see if I did have that book. But yeah, I think it's like,
I bought it as a paperback. You bought it as an ebook.
Yeah.
This is kind of the thing I like to kind of go off on a little tangent here. Is these books are so much better as paperbacks because you can flick through them. If you're on an e-reader, you've got to go back page, front page. Get them as pay for the paperbacks because then you can use them as reference guides.
Or Newsletter Ninja, 99p on Kindle.
Okay, that's for cheapskates, but it's a false economy in my opinion.
What were you saying about your advertising budget?
So all of my ads have been about £20 a week. That's not my kind of test budget. That's an amount I'm comfortable kind of throwing away, for want of a better term. But I've had some results. I think if you spend like 50p a day, you're not going to get anything. You kind of got to spend a little bit to kind of get some data and together. So £20 a week, it's about £2.50 a day, has been not a bad amount to start with. I might do in the new year test with more money to see how that scales up. But yeah, no, I don't want to be just throwing money into the ether with this kind of thing, which is very easy to do. It's very easy to be kind of like bewitched by that option. Oh, if you put £50 a day in, you'll reach X number of people. But if you consider the percentage of those people who will actually either A, click, and B, do the call to action, I mean, you're lucky if you get 10% of your eyeballs that click on the link, and 10% of them will actually go onto the link and do anything. So, yeah.
Have you played about with video advertising at all?
Well, I don't have a face for video, so I don't want to be in the video. Lord knows, if people have watched an hour and 3 minutes of this already, good luck. I've kind of toyed a little bit with videos. I've kind of done, for Foundations, I did like a looping video teaser thing for Instagram. That was fun to make. I just put the cover, put some smoke effects on, a few flames at the bottom. That was good fun, just to kind of draw a little bit of visual interest. I can't say I've used it in an advert yet. I do have a similar thing for Nightmare Tennant prepared that I might give a go with over the festive period. I might actually be bold and see if people will be prepared to pay for this book based on an advert. That's going to be the real test. But yeah, video, it's kind of like looping video that just kind of catches people's eye. I think, Martin, you've seen a couple of the videos I created. You know the kind of teasers I'm doing. I kind of think that's, if you're going to do a video, that's what you want to do. I'm not quite sure what other videos would be effective, because the trouble is, people on social media are really fucking lazy and don't have any attention span. So if you create this wonderful
Social media are so lazy. Why aren't they just giving me money?
Exactly. Why aren't they just giving me money? You know, get with the program. But the trouble is, it's a waste of time making like a 4.5 minute trailer of your book people are going to watch the first 3 seconds, think, "Oh, I'm scrolling on to the next, picture of cats or celebrity, tittle tattle or stuff like that." So you kind of have to grab their attention there and then. So
If
that's
you
why.
don't want a book trailer, however, you should talk to Books by Adrian.
Oh, his graphics are like, He's oof. All I can make is these wordless noises to express how good his graphics are. So if you want good shit, speak to him.
So there's a school of thought in self-publishing that you really shouldn't be advertising until you have 3 books published. Why are they wrong?
First of all, who are they saying these things?
Them, they say stuff.
Them. I think that's wrong. I can kind of see the kind of reticence from a consumer, because if you go to an author who's got 1 book out with 2 reviews, you're going to be like, it's probably just his mum and dad liking that. I think once you kind of get to like a critical mass, so Nightmare Tennant has 29 ratings on Amazon and about the same on Goodreads. I kind of think that's enough for people to think, oh, so that's actually got some reviews. It's actually not just his mum and dad or all his friends buying it. It's actually got some kind of traction behind it. I mean, the idea that I've got 29 friends is, quite frankly, a figment of fantasy. Who could possibly imagine that? But yeah, I just think advertisement and stuff, because you kind of got to get that ball rolling, haven't you? You kind of just got to, get there somehow. But yeah, I think this actually kind of emphasises the importance of your ARC readers and your street team, getting them well ahead of time, and making sure people post their reviews in a prompt fashion. Just because when you do advertise, you want people to see, oh, there are reviews. Oh, this isn't just some guy publishing a book and then disappearing off the face of the earth. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Do you have a street team?
Sorry, do I have a street team? I don't really. Yeah, I think I do. I have like a stable, a roster of veritable contacts that I can kind of rely on. If you want to be in that roster, you can sign up to my newsletter.
You just slam a button on your desk and bells ring around the world, and people go, "Richard Holliday needs me."
I'm sending the Richard signal out into the night sky.
Yeah.
It's just a silhouette of a pineapple on a pizza.
So, are you now rich?
Am I now rich? That's a very personal and probing question. Am I rich? Well, I've got this swanky South London pad, so I can't say I'm failing at life. But I'm based on my books now.
But for clarification, you were already a London homeowner going into this.
I was already a London homeowner going into this, so I had I had the resources to plough into this. But this kind of makes a good point. Is I'm not actually doing this to make money, not in the short term anyway. Because if you're doing writing for short term financial gain, you need to kind of have a reality check in a big way. But obviously, it would be nice in the future to kind of make a little bit of a living off of this. I don't know. I'm not going to be deluded in the sense that I would be a full-time author. You have to kind of work part-time and do my books on the side and have a little bit of a side hustle. But I'm doing it because of the passion, really. Just kind of. But I also kind of think you need to kind of, if you actually want to take your writing seriously, you kind of have to put a little bit of your money where your mouth is. Like the covers for this were commissioned online. I didn't pay silly money for them. I wasn't like I paid $800 or anything like that.
That is what I quoted.
Yeah, that's why you didn't get the gig, Martin. Sorry, I couldn't afford you. Well, not that I couldn't afford you. I didn't want to afford you.
So, in the last year, you've published 2 novellas. You've experimented.
Well, does this count as a novella? Because it's only 20. I think actually it is a novella, isn't it? It's not a short story. A short story is about 10,000 words plus. This is what you actually call a novella. This is a big boy novella. It's almost
long, short form.
Long and short. One's shorter than long. Yeah.
So you've done that. You've learned. You've dipped your toe into learning how adverts work, and what lessons will you be taking forward?
how adverts work. I think you just got to just be prepared to do trial and error, and you have to be again like a scientific approach. Don't just think, "Oh, I'll just throw an ad together." You have to kind of think, okay, if I'm going to do some testing, I need to have an advert A, advert B, advert C. I have to have some kind of criteria to market on, and you just have to kind of learn from all of the data that you get given. This is the thing. This is a very kind of like data-driven kind of like environment, isn't it? You have to be prepared to crunch the numbers and be aware of what you're doing. If you just kind of, I think you kind of get out what you put in a sense, in terms of planning and thought.
Have you done much in terms of social media?
I have a Facebook page that I always forget to update. I have an Instagram page which I spend far too much time on, which is ironic because I fucking hate Instagram. I have a Twitter page that I don't take seriously whatsoever. That's just my irreverent ramblings. So definitely don't judge my sort of professional content based on that. I don't quite understand what what's that other one? TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
Snapchat is a total.
TikTok is basically Vine, except Vine went under and TikTok hadn't. And now Facebook and Instagram and YouTube are all trying to be Vine as well, even though Vine went under.
Martin, you just said a load of words.
I'm down with
any of those. Hang on, what's a Vine? Hang on, was Vine Periscope before Telegram came along?
Was Telescope Prime? I don't know.
We're just saying words at this point.
Which one was Face Smash?
Face Smash? Hang on. I'm old enough to remember Bebo and MySpace, Sunny Jim.
And Face Party.
Face Party?
And you sell books using Face Party.
What about Friends Reunited?
There was a book I read about 10 years ago where this guy was self-publishing, basically swore by using Twitter to grow an audience. And and his whole process was basically going on trying to talk to people and occasionally mentioning he had books, and apparently was wildly successful with this.
Oh, I've given up on that. I gave up on that a long time ago because Twitter is just shit. Twitter is shit. Let's just be honest about the unspoken fact that Twitter is an absolute dumpster fire. I gave up chasing that dream of, oh, look at me, I'm popular because I've got 20,000 people on Twitter. Who cares? I'd rather have quality readers in my newsletter. That's why I'm kind of prioritising that, because those are people who've shown some interest in me, whether it is just to get the freebie and then fuck off after 2 minutes, which has happened. Bethany asked a good question. How do I get reviews? What you have to do is...
If you do have questions, post them now and we will get to them.
Sorry. I'm bored of your questions, Martin. I want to answer these questions. But do continue asking your questions.
Well, yeah, I was pleasantly surprised. You seem to have had a good experience from the newsletter subscribers who've come through the Facebook ads.
Yeah, I mean,
still have a good open rate, and
yeah, I mean, my open rate was quite. I mean, do you actually want me to talk numbers about my open rate? So when it was just the 40 or so friends and family and people on Discord who somehow tolerated me, my open rate was about 78, 80%, which I was not unhappy about. Then once I got the first influx of random people from Facebook who didn't know me from Adam, no offense, Adam, but
well, you do podcasts together. It's not surprising they'd confuse you.
We did just one podcast together, and it was enough to end the world. It was that good. My open rate dipped down to about 48%, and I was a bit upset with that. But then I looked at, in terms of past the percentage you get raw numbers, my open rate has gone up every time. And on my latest newsletter that went out a couple of days ago, I actually got 51% opens, and that was on my highest audience level ever. So I was really pleased with that. I think, Martin, you were saying to me in a private comment at some point that anything over 30% is quite good.
Yeah, I do remember reading that. I can't remember where, so I might have dreamt it.
Okay, I mean, that is likely. I also dream statistics.
So, how are you getting reviews?
That is a very good question. I think the trouble is, I did that free event for Nightmare Tennant, got 500 downloads. I'm not expecting. I think the thing is, you should expect single-digit % returns. Do not think, 500 people downloaded it, I'm going to get 500 reviews. 95% of those 500 people might never open it. They just downloaded it to have it on their Kindle for a rainy day in the year 2078, at some point in the future. I just I'm a little bit kind of pushy in the newsletter, like, make sure you review my book if you haven't done. You just got to kind of like persist. And that even accounts for ARC readers. I know an ARC reader for Nightmare Tennant who took 6 months to post a review, but I'm really glad she did because it was a really good review.
They're in the chat tonight.
Oh, they are shit. Oh, they were not being funny. You know what? Better late than never. But yeah, I think you just have to I prefer people to agree to art for me as long as they actually want to do it and can commit to it. I'd rather people say, I might have, like, say, Stephen King might offer to art for me. I'm going to say, listen, as long as you've actually got time to do it, I don't care. I'm not that desperate. So yeah, I'm just going to be working on that. I think something in the new year I'm going to be working on is some of these review platforms like Readsy and NetGalley. I think is one of them. I'm forgetting what all of them are. I'm not going to say they are paid to reviews. You are paid to access this kind of marketplace of reviewers who might pick up your book. I did have a couple of Instagram people, sketchy people on Instagram. They direct messaged me saying, I like your book. Do you want a review? I'm like, okay. Then they're like, you have to pay for a review. I'm like, nah. Wouldn't pay for reviews directly like that. No, I just think that's going down. I think it's a scam, really. Do you know what I think it is? I think it's a really unethical bit of publishing. That'll please Garrett. But yeah, actually saying that on Instagram, a couple of the kind of Bookstagram people, I'm kind of finally shaking off my British tact. I'm just straight up asking people if they want a copy of my book to review. And a couple of people have said yes, which is nice. I see it as a bit of a lost leader. You give them a free book, they post it to their audience of 2,000 or 3,000 or 900. And it's just exposure, isn't it? And I think in the long game, you're kind of building up that kind of presence to then be able to kind of push, if that makes sense. Does that answer your question, Bethany? Because I hope it does. If not, leave me a review in the description.
So, who would you get to do the audiobooks of Nightmare Tennant and Foundations? Colin Clark.
Colin Clark, yeah, definitely Colin Clark. I think Barrett Laurie has a very good audio voice. I could literally listen to him all day and all night. And who's to say I haven't? It's kind of funny in terms of the whole audio thing, because I actually don't particularly prioritize audiobooks. And because I personally don't listen to audiobooks, my commute to work is a 10-minute walk. And by the time I figured out how to work my iPod, I'm like, already at work. Yeah, but I think it is an important thing to factor in. But you can't commit to an audio because they are expensive to produce.
Unless you do a royalty share.
Unless you do a royalty share, which you're going to explain right now, because I don't know what that is.
Basically, you can find narrators who will not charge you up front. In exchange, they get a substantial cut of any sales of the audiobook for a period, I believe, would be 7 years.
That's interesting. That's actually, I suppose it's not a bad kind of deal. Especially if you're kind of, I don't want to say impoverished, but if money is a factor, you can kind of think, I'd like to have a nice professional audiobook, but it's kind of perhaps prohibitively expensive. And I was quite lucky because on my YouTube channel, which is talking about his YouTube channel, imagine that, I have got a audiobook of a short story of mine called Oranges and Lemons that was kind of professionally produced by a friend of mine. I got some friends together and we produced it. And I was really pleased with the results. I think it's a really effective piece. So I'm not ruling out audiobooks. I'm just kind of waiting until maybe I've got a bit more traction before we kind of go down that road.
Have you ever had reviews disappear or fail to show up?
I think the thing with Amazon reviews is their review system is very opaque, because you submit a review and it just disappears. It might turn up, it might not. I wish they had like a section for pending reviews that you've posted that haven't approved, because I think the trouble is some people write reviews in Amazon and then don't save the review and then it just disappears. So I've not really had that problem. I've had people say they've had problems reviewing me. And I think there's that whole kind of thing where you're not allowed, under the Amazon terms of service, you're not supposed to review people but how are they going to know? I think it's a very fuzzy policy. I think Amazon really needs to kind of up their game in terms of the sort of transparency. I know there's absolutely no impetus for them to do that, because they basically own the known universe at this point and can travel to it.
Colin says that if you do a royalty share, the narrator gets 20% and you get 20%.
That's quite good. And do I know any narrators? I do know some actors who I think would do a great job with some of my books, but again, I haven't really approached them.
I'm not sure that's what Colin was going for.
Oh, was he pitching for the gig? Oh, he's got it, probably. Yeah. We'll let him do it.
So, what's the next thing you're going to be publishing?
So I'm currently at the moment preparing the fourth draft of my novel, The Thaw, to go to an agent. Going to be querying that in the new year. I'm currently also planning a 3-part sort of almost kind of like post-apocalyptic thriller series. Again, the mundane into macabre kind of feel. But I'm going to be publishing next year. I'm going to get at least 2 out of 3 books of it done next year. I'm planning quite an aggressive / ambitious release schedule for that, so that's going to be fun. I'm not ready to announce it just yet. I'll be announcing the series in January, and so if you want to find out about that, you know what to do. Subscribe to the newsletter, because you'll find out first. That's going to be exciting, and so I'm hoping the first book's going to be out in May. So that's going to be fun. The second book possibly October, and then the next one in the spring after that. And so yeah, going to give that whole hybrid author thing a go.
And a rapid release again.
I think a rapid release is good, because I've kind of already got an agreement in principle with an editor. Mm-hmm. I've never actually had an editor before. I've always kind of really relied on beta feedback and then implementing that myself. So that's going to hopefully enhance the process and get it done quicker, because I don't want to say I'm going to be skipping the beta feedback stage, but I'm kind of just going to be replacing it with a more comprehensive kind of editorial process. So it's going to be exciting. I think the books are going to be about 60 to 65,000 words each, so it's not going to be a big, humongous kind of like The Stand book that you could probably, kill someone with.
It's not going to be Brandon Sanderson.
It's not going to be that either. It's going to be, looking at 250, 300 pages a book, shall we say? How's that?
Well, it's been an honour and a privilege to chat to you about your year.
Thank you. I thought it was too. I thought it was also an honour and a privilege to chat to me.
Where can people find more Richard Holliday?
But they can definitely subscribe to my newsletter. I don't know if I mentioned that before. You should definitely subscribe to my newsletter. I'm also on Facebook, Richard Holliday Author. I'm also on Twitter and what's the other one? What's the picture called?
Pick you off the way you speak about them.
Well, what are they going to do? Bunch of twats. Oh. I'm on Twitter and Instagram as RJP Holiday, because I have the imagination of a small bat.
And thank you to everyone at home for watching. If you
Thank
enjoyed
you,
it,
chat. I know Martin didn't put any of the comments up, but it's very kind of you to be here to support this endeavour. It was a lot of fun to be here. Good to just kind of chat about the year in writing that was 2021. I mean, a lot of people seem to think 2021 was a bit of a dumpster fire. It's depending on your perspective. You've got to find the positives somewhere. As long as they're not positive COVID tests, we don't want those. No thanks.
please subscribe and like, and there'll be more similar writing chattery in the future. See you guys again.